Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. We have 40 books to discuss in this haul today, so let's get straight into it. I attended YALC recently in London, which is the Young Adult Literature Convention. It is becoming increasingly less young adult lately, even to the point where there are stalls that are purely dedicated to adult books, be it spicy romanticises, general fantasies, contemporary fiction. It is just increasingly becoming this hodgepodge mixture of adult, young adult, not really knowing who the target audience is for the event anymore, but I go every year because it is a great opportunity to get really cheap books. It's basically like an outlet discount mall for readers. So we've got 40 books to go through today. Some of them are series that I can bunch together, and that's exactly what this first one is, and it is the Firelight trilogy by Sophie Jordan. We've got Firelight, and then Vanish, and then Hidden. This, from what I know about it, has one, lovely sprayed edges, but two, is a sort of enemies to lovers romance series about a woman who can shapeshift, I guess, into a dragon. Because of Jacinda, our main character's rebelliousness, her and her family are forced to flee into the human realm, and that is causing her Drakai, her dragon spirit, to fade. And the only thing that seems to be able to revive it is Will, who is a man who hunts her kind, making this hopefully an incredible enemies to lovers fantasy romance. Next up, I picked up The Hollow and the Haunted by Camilla Rains. This one I think I won, or at the very least I read the first chapter of it in one of those samplers and then immediately went and bought it because I was really intrigued. It is a queer, I think, fantasy romance between two young boys whose families are rivals feuding against each other, and one of the young boys starts to have premonitions of the other young boy's death. So the two form an uneasy alliance to try and solve the boy's murder before it even happens. It's giving me kind of Romeo and Juliet vibes from the whole feuding family thing, but maybe that's just because that's like the book that did it first, or at least most notably. Then we have Flowerheart by Catherine Bakewell, which has just the most incredible cover. There is something about the illustration of this cover that I absolutely adore. Please ignore the whole signed by the author thing. That is a sticker that I will remove, but it's one of those stickers that's really hard to get off. Like, it will leave that residue, so I want to do it like properly. It's also got this like plasticky cover that's kind of shiny that I really like because I don't see it on many books. But anyway, illustration aside, this book follows Clara, whose magic has always been wild but never been dangerous, until one day she touches her father's chest and it causes poisonous flowers to grow in his chest. In order to solve this problem and save her father, she's forced to team up with a man who used to be her very close friend but has since turned into this dark and mysterious person who's asking a very, very high cost for helping her. His name is Xavier, and as she's forced to reckon with the man he's become and the secrets that he's hiding from her, she discovers the root of a terrible darkness that's taken hold in the queendom, a darkness that only her magic is powerful enough to stop. So it sounds like a childhood friends to strangers to lovers potentially kind of fantasy romance, and it's got heaps of witchy vibes, as well as, again, the most stunning cover that just gives me such fall vibes, so I'm kind of sad that it's more winter for me now. Next up, I got another series from an author who I actually attended the panel for. I think it was Intense Intent, all about mysteries and thrillers, and that is Jennifer Lynn Barnes's The Naturals series. So we've got The Naturals, Killer Instinct, All In, and Bad Blood. Obviously, Jennifer Lynn Barnes is more well known for her Inheritance Game series and world, basically, but I think this came first, and this basically follows a group of very gifted young kids who are recruited by the FBI in order to take part in a program where these kids are used for their amazing abilities in deduction and crime solving. It's a somewhat sanctioned slash unsanctioned, kind of falls outside the lines into the gray area kind of operation, and it follows primarily this one girl whose name is Cassie, who has the ability to piece together the tiniest details to get into the mind of another person. This makes her an absolutely expert profiler, but it also is a skill that she learned after the death of her own mother, the brutal death of her own mother. So not only are you solving the cases that are taking place in real time in this series, but you're learning about how the histories of the characters ended up with them having these skills and potentially solving the mysteries around those particular histories. That's probably a really poor explanation, but it is an incredible incredible series. It has an amazing love triangle that is going way better than the love triangle in the Inheritance games did, in my opinion. I've read the first two and I can't wait to get into the last two, but I probably will have to do a reread at some point. Next up, we have the Daughter of the Pirate King duology, and then the follow-up standalone Vengeance of the Pirate Queen, or at least I think that's how this is structured. I have read the first book. I haven't read the next two, but they are Daughter of the Pirate King, Daughter of the Siren Queen, and Vengeance of the Pirate Queen. I think they are really, really stunning covers. It's a fantasy romance series, obviously, because of the pirate side of things. It's set at sea. I don't read a lot of pirate romance, but I am intrigued by this one. As for what it's about, it follows a 17-year-old girl named Alosa, who is the daughter of the feared Pirate King, and she's on a mission to retrieve an ancient hidden map, which is the key to a legendary treasure trove. But the catch is that she needs to conceal her considerable combat skills and allow herself to be captured by her enemies, which will give her the perfect opportunity to search their ship. And on that ship, she meets her captor, the unexpectedly clever and unfairly attractive first mate Raiden, who is the only thing standing between her and the map. So the first two books follow her. I think the third book follows someone else in the story arc, so I'm intrigued to meet them and learn more about them and hopefully root for their romance in this book. But yeah, looking forward to reading or finishing, I guess, this series. Then I picked up The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna. This is a book that I read and absolutely loved, and I also saw Sangu Mandanna on the panel at last year's YALC. She was incredibly funny and absolutely sold me on this book and her future books. I think there's another book that's like a spin-off of this one or in the same series world sort of thing. But as for what this one is about, it follows a young woman who's sort of masquerading as a witch online to cover up the fact that she really is a witch, because in her world, witches exist, but they're not allowed to gather together in groups because it does something weird to their magic and their powers. They're forced to remain hidden and under the radar until one day this young woman is sort of recruited, I guess, by a family living out in the countryside who have 3 young witches in their care. And those 3 young witches, their magic is kind of going out of control and they desperately need someone to come and teach them. There is a beautiful found family in this story on one side, but then also a really, really lovely romance that's at play. It's kind of grumpy sunshine, kind of reluctant in a way, in that the guy really does care about our main character, Maiya, but doesn't want to fall for her. And then there are these like parental figures that are like the caretakers of the house, and they're just so sweet. It's just an adorable, lovely, funny time, and it's just, it's so wholesome. So please, I recommend this 100%. It's finally started to get a little bit lighter in here, which is annoying because it means the lighting in this video is going to change. But anyway, next up, I picked up The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers. This one was purely because I needed a third book to get the 3 for £10 deal. And this is what I picked up because I recognized the cover, I recognized the title, and I was like, screw it, I'm gonna get it. I only found out afterwards that I already own it on Kindle, but I guess now I have the possibility of reading it in either format, depending on what I feel like when I eventually pick it up. That is how I'm justifying getting a duplicate. Join me in my delusion. As for what this is about, it says, curses are made to be broken. 10 years ago, Violet Everly's mother left to break their family curse and she never returned. So now Violet has to find her mother or she will be taken in her place. This hunt leads her to a magical underworld of power-hungry scholars, fickle gods, and monsters bent on revenge, and to the handsome Alexander, who cannot be trusted and yet to whom she is undeniably drawn. So I assume they have to work together, and it is a bit of a, I don't know, it's not rivals when they work together. What is it called when people work together? Allies! I don't know why that took me such a long time to come with, but it's allies potentially to lovers. But yeah, time's running out. Soon Violet finds herself seeking the edges of the world and the city of Stardust where the curse began. So sounds vaguely fantastical and also maybe a little bit witchy, but yeah. Looking forward to this one, and I think the cover, again, is absolutely stunning. Now going into some hardbacks before we get to the paperbacks in my other pile. First, we've got The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. The entire reason why I picked up this book is because I love the Twin Crowns series by Catherine Doyle and Catherine Weber, and now, of course, Catherine Doyle comes out with her own book. I'm going to read it. It's definitely YA. I read more adult fantasy and fantasy romance, but I'm intrigued because of how much I loved that series to see what Catherine Doyle can do when it's just her writing. But as for what it's about, it says, in a deadly game of revenge, the most dangerous mistake of all is falling in love. Oh, and I got a bookmark with it too. I didn't know that. Ah! So it's set in a place called Fantôme, which is a kingdom of cobbled streets, flickering lamplight, beautiful buildings, and secret catacombs. Catacombs, I promise I can say the word, I just am struggling today. So shade magic is a scarce and deadly commodity controlled by two enemy guilds, the Cloaks and the Daggers, the Thieves and the Assassins. On the night of her mother's murder, 18-year-old Seraphine, I love that name, she runs for her life. She seeks sanctuary with the Cloaks, but her heart is set on revenge. Nothing can prepare Sarah for the moment she finally comes face to face with Ransom, heir to the Order of Daggers, and Ransom is shocked to discover that this unassuming farm girl wields a strange and blazing magic he has never seen before. So it's a fiery enemies to lovers romantasy. That's like all of my buzzwords all at once, so I can't wait to see what Catherine Doyle can do when it's just her book. Next up, I picked up Best Hex Ever by Nadia El-Fassi. I am so sorry, I have absolutely butchered that pronunciation, but to me, this is saying witchy, it is saying fantasy romance, and I am so looking forward to it. It also has a gorgeous purple sprayed edge. Like, that is a beautiful cover. I'm usually not a fan of like a block sprayed edge, but that color purple is stunning. So it follows Dina, who is a skilled witch and cafe owner, but she is cursed to hurt anyone who falls for them. And then we are introduced to Scott, who is a museum curator who's recently back in London after a brutal breakup 2 years ago, and he's looking to make up for all the time that he missed, determined to be the perfect best man at his best friend's upcoming wedding, but his plans take an unexpected turn when he meets the bewitching maid of honor, who I assume is Dina. And then after a weekend in the countryside full of peculiar hedge mazes, palm readings by candlelight, and a midnight Halloween ritual, there's no denying the chemistry between them, but there's just one problem. The hex still holds, and Dina knows that Scott is in danger. Can Dina break the spell before it breaks both of their hearts? Oh, that sounds perfect. It's perfect for fans of Talia Hibbert, the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. Like, that sounds right up my alley because I love both of those things, as you'll know because I just ranted about the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I love this cover as well. I think it's absolutely stunning. Whoever made this has some serious talent that I wish that I could recreate. Next up, we've got Mistress of Lies by K.M. Enright, which is a vampire fantasy romance, dark fantasy romance book. Again, not something you kind of would expect to see at a young adult literature convention, but it follows a woman named Shan, who is the daughter of a powerful but disgraced blood worker, and she kills her father in order to take his position at the head of the family. Then we've got Samuel Hutchinson, who is a bastard with a terrible gift. When he stumbles upon the first victim of a magical serial killer, he's drawn into this world that he's always tried to avoid. So these two, as well as a mysterious royal blood worker, Isaac, find themselves growing ever closer to each other as they have to work together to find the identity of this serial killer. But Shan's plans are treacherous, and as she lures Samuel into her complicated web of desire, treason, and vengeance, he must decide if the good of their nation is worth the cost of his soul. So, I mean, that sounds super intriguing, dark and twisty, and like fantasy romance. Kind of, there's gonna be an enemies element in there, I reckon. And it just sounds like it's gonna be a really good, fun time. So that's the next book. We're on to pile number 2. So BRB while I go and get those books. It's gonna be like 2 seconds for you, but I'm gonna do that and then we'll keep going. So pile number 2 is all the books that I bought on the second day of YALC, and it's the same amount of books, but it's significantly taller and it's looking like it's gonna tip. So I'm genuinely scared that at some point in this video, it's all gonna just come crashing down and I will finish the video with a black eye, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully I make it out of this alive. The next book, which is right at the top of the pile, and I have to be so delicate, is Girls Who Burn by M.K. Pagano. Again, I'm so sorry if I have said that wrong. The tagline is, can she catch a killer before her life goes up in flames? And that is really how this was sold to me, as, you know, this is going to be so pacey and you're not going to be able to put it down. I think there's also a romantic sort of enemies to lovers element in this as well. All the sorts of things that would make me want to read a book. So it follows Addie, whose sister died a year ago, and her death was always ruled as an accident, but Addie doesn't believe it. And then we have Seth, who is the boy next door that she loves to hate despite the connection that's burning between them. And he is the epitome of wealth and privilege, which I think is part of why she hates him, because she sees his family and everything he stands for as completely corrupt. He is also the boy whose cousin might have murdered her sister, but nevertheless, the two of them team up in order to find out the truth of what happened to Addie's sister, and maybe a bit of romance along the way. Next up, we have My Lady Jane by Hand, Ashton, and Meadows. I think that means it's got 3 authors, so I'm sorry, I don't know the full names of all 3 of them. It just says Hand, Ashton, and Meadows. And I bought this because I watched the TV show and got super sad that it ended up being not renewed for a 2nd season. So I'm praying that the book kind of gives me a more complete ending to that whole show than the show did. This is basically a retelling of the story of Lady Jane Grey, who was the Queen of England for 9 days. I think she fell between some of the queens in the sort of Tudor period. So I think you had Henry, and then his son Edward took charge, and then he was really sickly, so he died. And then I think Lady Jane Grey came in for like 9 days before Bloody Mary, Queen Mary came in and ruled. And then obviously after that you got Queen Elizabeth I, and everybody knows her. So Lady Jane Grey is famous for being the queen for 9 days. And this story is kind of a fictionalized retelling of that period of time with fantasy elements. So there are creatures, there is a world at play where there are normal people and there are people who can turn into animals, and the people who can turn into animals are persecuted. And this book is a romance between Lady Jane Grey and one of the people who can turn into an animal, who is hiding his true identity. He turns into a horse, which I think is really funny. And I'm hoping this puts like a different ending on her story, and she maybe is queen for longer than 9 days, or they run away together or something, rather than the actual truth, which is that she got beheaded. Then I picked up some Lynn Painter books as part of a 3 for $10 deal. And the first one is Betting on You by Lynn Painter, with this beautiful green and pink cover. And I love all the illustrations on the front that's like showing moments, I guess, in this couple's life together, I'm hoping. But it follows Bailey and Charlie, and the first time they met each other, he was the absolute worst. And then a few years later, they are thrown together once again at a water park where they're forced to work together. But gone now is that sort of obnoxious know-it-all Charlie. So Bailey is kind of thrown for a bit of a loop because he's now pretty fun, except for the fact that he insists that guys and girls can't be friends. So naturally, Bailey is determined to prove him wrong. So she makes a bet with Charlie, and that completely gets out of hand very quickly, especially because Charlie has a secret wager going on of his own. They start up a bit of a fake dating romance while they're also forced to hide their own feelings for each other just to win. Then I got the sort of first 2 books. I don't know if it continues beyond this in the sort of Better Than the Movies or Nothing Like the Movies. I don't know which book comes first, but it's Better Than the Movies and Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. This one is a sort of boy next door romance following Wes and Liz. Wes has been irritating Liz since they were kids, but now it's senior year and he's made friends with Michael, who is her forever crush. And so Liz realizes that her annoying neighbor is now the ticket to scoring the prom date of her dreams. So I guess they must kind of team up to win Liz her magical moment. And in that time, they discover that they actually like spending time together and potentially fall in love. I don't know. And then we've got Nothing Like the Movies, which is the sequel to this book, I've discovered. So I'm not gonna read the blurb for that because I just saw the same name right at the top and I'm like, well, that's West. So I don't want to read the blurb to the sequel because it'll give it away, but I figure it's a romance, so they're probably going to be together and then something's going to happen that's going to tear them apart and then pull them back together again. I don't know, but those are the Lynn Painter books that I got. Every time I tell you about a book, I put it in this pile like underneath me, and the pile is getting precariously more like Leaning Tower of Pisa right now, except this one is 100% gonna fall. Next up, we have Spice Road by Maiya Ibrahim, which is one of those books where the cover completely sold me, and then I talked to the person behind the stall about it and she sold it to me even more, but God forbid I cannot remember a single thing that she said. So this book follows Imani, and it's set in the desert city of Kalia, which has been hiding its secrets and its magic for generations. And then one day, Imani's brother goes missing in the Forbidden Wastes, and it's suspected that he is escaping to then share the secrets of the Kalia with the world. So Imani is sent in as part of a party to go and retrieve him and make him face punishment for this potential crime. She is accompanied by her rival, the devastatingly handsome Taha, and she soon discovers that many secrets lie beyond the shifting desert sands and in her own heart. So she's caught between her duty to her nation, her love for her brother, and her growing feelings for Taha, leading her to decide where her loyalties lie before it is too late. Then we have Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. This is the author of These Violent Delights duology, which I absolutely adored despite being incredibly and still remaining incredibly intimidated by that whole duology. I'm terrified to go into the books that follow up from that, because I don't know, there's just something about the character that we're going to follow where I'm not sure if I'll like her, and I don't want potentially not liking that book to then cloud the rest of the series for me because I loved it so much. I don't know, but this is a new world and a new series from this author, and it follows Princess Kala, who vowed to tear down San Air's tyrannical monarchy 5 years ago. First, she killed her parents, and now her sights are set on her uncle, the remaining reclusive king. The only way to reach him is to enter his deadly games and be crowned the winner by his hand. Anton Makusa's childhood love lies in a coma, and he is deep in debt trying to keep her alive. His last chance at saving her is winning the games. So when the two form an uneasy alliance, victory is soon within their reach. But as their mutual attraction proves increasingly undeniable, Kala must decide what she's playing for, her lover or her kingdom. So it sounds like an allies but also secretly rivals kind of romance, and I'm so excited to step back into another incredibly immersive world because I know Chloe Gong writes the most amazing immersive fantasies with just perfect romances. So that's exactly what this is going to be, I reckon. Next up, I picked up the Deadly Divine Duet by Ella Fields, which is Nectar of the Wicked and Wrath of the Damned. I only found out about Nectar of the Wicked because it was in a fairy loot box, and I heard it was like very spicy, very smutty, and I'm like, you know what? Screw it, that sounds right up my alley. And then this is the sequel, so I thought if I'm gonna get the first one and it's a duet, I may as well just complete the series, which is something I'm known for doing because I may hate the first one, but hey, at least I still have the second. So as for what this is about, it was in the Fairy Loot adult romantasy box, so it's an adult romantasy. It's definitely very spicy as well. So it says, for 20 years, I was an unwanted changeling with no name, no family, and no answers, until an irresistibly wicked fairy begins a seductive game of cat and mouse. I am his prey, his treasure, a perfect pet. He offers a trade. He will take me to the fairy realms to assist in my search for the truth of who I am. In return, I must agree to marry him. But things are not as they seem, and soon after arriving at his wintry manor, I begin to unravel a dangerous web of lies. Far deadlier still, I'm falling in love with a monster who has no heart. And then we've got the sequel, and I'm obviously not going to read the blurb for that. Then I picked up a chunky boy at the same stand, and that is Catch the Sun by Jennifer Hartman. I read Still Beating, I think, by this author, and was traumatized by it, but equally really still enjoyed it. So I saw this with this sort of beautiful like golden hour kind of cover on it, and I was intrigued. And again, I needed a third book for the 3 for 10 deal, and this is what drew my eye. It says, at 7 years old, Ella Sunbury and Max Manning were inseparable until life scattered them in different directions, forcing Ella to abruptly leave town. A decade later, she returns for their senior year of high school, moving in across the street from her childhood best friend. But she's not the same girl Max once knew. Now she lives in the shadow of her brother, a notorious felon on death row convicted of a crime that shook the nation. Reeling from the fallout and shunned by her peers, all Ella wants is to fade into the background. Max has little room for distractions, juggling responsibilities for a disabled father and a distant twin brother. But Ella's return reignites something within him. He wants to be close to her again, to understand her, and to turn their friendship into more. But as their relationship blossoms, new tragedy strikes, and darkness threatens to tip their delicate balance. In order to find the light, they'll have to navigate the shadows, and to catch the sun, they must first endure the flames. I mean, Jennifer Hartman is known for not holding back when it comes to dealing with really, really difficult topics. I don't necessarily think that she's amazing at giving those topics the depth they deserve in sort of more contemporary literary fiction, but she definitely finds ways to ingratiate them into the plot that doesn't draw offense so much as just makes you really traumatized while you're reading her books. And then she always has like a sweet romance in there that, yes, has dark edges to it, but the romance itself can be quite swoony. I've probably said all of that and it sounds wrong now that I'm thinking about what I've said, but I'm going to include all of it anyway, and then if this book isn't that vibe, tell me in the comments that I'm wrong. Then I picked up Wolf Girl by Leia Stone, which was a complete impulse buy, and when I added this to my Goodreads TBR and I saw the original cover for it, I was like, oh, so it's that kind of book. So it's a paranormal romance with like werewolf shifters, and it follows a young girl who's kind of suppressed the wolf in her for her whole life until one day it comes out and it results in a lot of very fast changes. Basically what happens is she was cuffed, which is something that they do to people to stop them being able to access their wolf, and then she meets an alpha son named Sawyer and he uncuffs her, and I imagine it's probably very spicy, so why the hell not? Then I picked up an arc, or I won an arc, which is Girls of Dark Divine by, I would love to tell you who, Evie Woods. Evie Woods. Love that. I don't know what this is about, and it doesn't actually have a blurb included in it. So it just says, discover the enthralling gothic fantasy laced with dark magic, electrifying romance, and burning rage. It's a gripping romantasy for fans of Stephanie Garber and Adeline Grace from debut author E.V. Woods. Then I picked up this book because it was really cheap, and I was kind of intrigued by it because it's a movie I've always wanted to watch, and now I have found that there's a book that's been written based off of the movie, and that is Dead Poets Society, by a novel by N.H. Kleinbaum based on the motion picture written by Tom Schulman. So I don't really know anything about this other than the fact that it follows a teacher who inspired these young boys. He made their lives extraordinary, and the teacher, or the actor that played the teacher, was Robin Williams, who is just, I have no words for that actor's skill, and it's like an absolute like horror to society that he's not with us anymore, and he can't bring those jokes and those that fun to the world anymore. It's heartbreaking. But anyway, before I get all teary about it, because I feel for me it's still too soon to talk about him. But anyway, it follows Todd Anderson and his friends at Welton Academy, who can hardly believe how different life is since their new English professor, the flamboyant John Keating, has challenged them to make your lives extraordinary. Inspired by Keating, the boys resurrect the Dead Poets Society, a secret club where, free from the constraints and expectations of school and parents, they let their passions run wild. As Keating turns the boys onto the great words of Byron, Shelley, and Keats, they discover not only the beauty of language, but the importance of making each moment count. But the Dead Poets pledges soon realize that their newfound freedom can have tragic consequences. Can the club and the individuality it inspires survive the pressure from authorities determined to destroy their dreams? I mean, yeah, this is gonna make me cry, I feel, when I read it, because I'm just gonna picture Robin Williams in my head, and that will make me cry. Next up, I picked up The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharp. This is one of those ones where the simplicity of the cover massively intrigued me, as well as what the person behind the stall also told me about it, which again, I've completely forgotten. But on the back it says, my name is Rebecca, crossed out, Samantha, crossed out, Haley, crossed out, Katie, crossed out, Ashley, crossed out, Nora, which again, intriguing. And it says, to understand my story, you first have to know about the girls I've been, and that starts with my delightful con artist mother, because I didn't choose a life of deception, I was born into it. 5 years ago, I escaped and became Nora, who has a nice normal life in a nice normal neighborhood, until this morning when I found myself at gunpoint in the middle of a bank heist with my ex-boyfriend and my new girlfriend. Talk about awkward. The first thing I thought was get down. The second thing, we're all gonna die because I stopped to buy donuts on the way to the bank. And the third thing, I'm the only one who can get us out of here alive, because the gunmen have no idea who I really am. That girl has been in hiding for far too long. And there's a feature film in development with Millie Bobby Brown, so I'm gonna read this before that comes out because I reckon this sounds like a really interesting premise for a movie. My camera's starting to overheat, so I'm gonna try and race through the next few as quickly as I can. And the next book is another ARC, and it's Daughter of Chaos by A.S. Webb. It's coming out in January of 2025. I could not tell you what it's about, and again, it does not include the blurb on the inside cover. Oh no, it does. It says, in ancient Greece, the gods demand the ultimate tribute, food, treasure, even human sacrifice. There are some mortals who cling to a desperate prophecy. One will come and set them free, but few believe it. Until Danae eats a mysterious golden apple and her life unravels with a dangerous path unfolding before her. Chased from her home, Danae will walk the winding roads of heroes. There she encounters the mighty demigod Heracles, and they will seek out monsters to battle. But Danae's destiny is not to fight beasts. She will hunt the gods. She will drag them screaming from Olympus. That sounds so intriguing. So it's like a Greek-inspired but tear down the gods because they're corrupt as shit kind of book, and I'm so excited. Then I picked up Warrior of the Wild by Tricia Levenseller. This is a standalone, and I think it's more Viking in inspiration, and it's another romance from this author. And it says, as her father's chosen heir, 18-year-old Resmira has trained her whole life to become a warrior and lead her village. But when her coming-of-age trial is sabotaged and she fails the test, her father banishes her to the monster-filled wilderness. Why does that happen? In a lot of fantasy, it's like someone fails a trial, they're sabotaged, and so they're banished. That's like really high stakes for like coming of age shit. But anyway, to win her back into the community, she is forced to embark on an impossible quest. She must kill the oppressive god who terrorizes the villagers or die trying. Then I picked up Business Casual by B.K. Borison, which is the 4th book in the Love Light Farm series. They are all contemporary romances, and I believe they're all seasonal in nature. So this one gives me autumn vibes potentially, but it follows a buttoned up chino wearing corporate man and an untamable tattoo artist who's easily distracted. It has a small town of meddling friends and enough tension to set both of their hearts on fire. Then I picked up Five Broken Blades by Mai Corland. This I was told is kind of Six of Crows-esque in that it's a group of people that have to have worked together, but I don't know anything else other than that. So it says, it's the season for treason. The king of Yusan must die. The 5 most dangerous liars in the land have been mysteriously summoned to work together for a single objective: to kill the god King June. He has it coming. Under his merciless and mortal hand, the nobles flourish while the poor and innocent are imprisoned, ruined, or sold. And now each of the 5 blades will come for him. Each has tasted bitterness, from the hired hitman seeking atonement, a lovely assassin who seeks freedom, or even the prince banished for his cruel crimes. None can resist the sweet, icy lure of vengeance. They can agree on murder. They can agree on treachery. But for these 5 killers, each versed in deception, lies, and betrayal, it's not enough to forge an alliance. To survive, they'll have to find a way to trust each other, but only one can take the crown. Let the best liar win. That tagline is so intriguing to me. Second last book, sort of, is Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. This was originally indie published and then it was picked up and re-released traditionally. As for what it's about, again, I don't know. I'm sorry that I'm just reading these blurbs to you now, but I'm gonna read the blurb. And it says, no one in Immortal has ever seen a dragon until 5 eggs, long-thought fossils, hatched in the presence of their young princess, Elwyn Atara. Fearing the power his daughter would wield through her soul bond with the creatures, King Garrick imprisoned her for many years, desperately trying to break the bond that united them, until a daring rescue saved Elwyn from his clutches, but left her 5 precious dragons at his mercy. So I'm guessing she's gonna do some Queen Daenerys shit and she's going to try and free her dragons and fall in love with somebody along the way. And the last book, which is also the last 4 books, is a series by Elizabeth Helen. These are not in order at all, but we've got Woven by Gold, Bonded by Thorns, which I think is the first one, Forged by Malice, and lastly, Broken by Daylight. These are all fantasy romances. They are all spicy from what I know. And I think they're also all fairy tale retellings in some way. Yeah, so this is the 4th and final book. It is Beauty and the Beast. This is the 3rd book. It is also Beauty and the Beast. Now I'm thinking that they're all just Beauty and the Beast. And I think some of them are reverse harem. This is as well Beauty and the Beast, and it's the first book. And I'm just gonna take a guess that this is the 2nd book and it is also Beauty and the Beast. So yeah, reverse harem, spicy fantasy romance, Beauty and the Beast retelling. So yeah, as a young girl, Beauty and the Beast was my favorite sort of fairy tale. So a spicy version of that sounds right up my alley. And that is the last of it. That is all the books that I got at YALC this year. I had a really good time. It wasn't as good as it has been in previous years, but I still had fun. I go with my husband every year. And yeah, it's a chance to get clearly a lot of books. But let me know if you attended YALC this year and what you thought of it. I'd be intrigued because there was a lot of discourse about how quiet it was on the 2nd day. Or if you didn't go to YALC this year, just tell me what you're reading at the moment, whether you're loving it, hating it, all that kind of thing. Come and chat to me in the comments down below. I really do love talking to you guys when I remember to reply to the comments, which I need to get better at. Please do like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I do release new videos. I am planning a few things upcoming, but we'll see if they actually come to fruition. But that is it for me today, so I will see you in my next video. Bye!